The wind moved through the dark forest, carrying the smell of rain and something else, something strange, something sharp like burnt metal. Rex, the shepherd dog, stopped in his tracks, ears up, nose twitching, his golden brown fur bristled. As he caught the scent again, it was not the smell of deer or wild animals he knew. This was different, alien. He turned his head toward the shadows and let out a low growl. The forest at night was quiet, but tonight the silence felt heavier. Somewhere deeper in the trees, a faint light flickered red, then blue. Rex barked once, a sharp sound that echoed. Into the night, from the small cabin at the edge of the forest, his owner, Evan, looked up from the tools he was cleaning. "What is it now, boy?" he muttered, but Rex was already gone, paws pounding the wet earth. Evan sighed, grabbed his jacket, and followed. Rex never barked without reason. He was a smart dog, trained to guard the old cabin and alert Evan to danger. Still, Evan didn't expect trouble this far from the main settlement. He walked quickly, his boots sinking into damp leaves. Rex ran fast, leaping over fallen branches. Following that strange smell, the glow ahead grew brighter. And then he saw it, a figure slumped against the base of a massive tree. Armor dented, cracked, and smoking as if it had been through fire. The figure was tall, with long limbs and skin that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Blood thick and glowing, faintly green trickled from the gaps in the armor. Rex stopped a few feet away, barking loudly. Tail stiff, the alien lifted his head slowly, his eyes, large and dark, locked onto the dog. He said something in a language Rex did not understand. Soft, broken, desperate. Evan appeared moments later, breathing hard. The moment his flashlight beam hit the figure, he froze. The insignia on the alien's chest plate was clear, a black spiral over a red sun. Evan's stomach tightened. He knew that symbol. Everyone did. It belonged to the very enemy humanity had been fighting for years. They were ruthless, merciless. In battle, every soldier from that empire was trained to kill humans without hesitation. For a second, Evan considered turning back. Let the alien bleed out here in the cold. One less enemy to worry about. But then, Rex whined, stepping closer. To the wounded figure, the alien's hand twitched, reaching out weakly, not for a weapon, but toward the dog. Evan frowned. The alien's breathing was shallow, armor burned and melted in places. No weapon was visible. A faint humming noise drifted through the trees. Evan's eyes darted upward. Red lights moved in the night sky, scanning the forest below. Enemy drones, searching. If they found this alien here, they would search every cabin nearby, maybe even attack. Evan cursed under his breath. He didn't want this trouble. He didn't want this choice. But Rex barked again, tail wagging slightly, as if urging him to do something. Fine, Evan muttered, stepping forward. The alien flinched but didn't resist when Evan knelt beside him. Up close, the damage was worse, deep burns across his side. One leg bent at an unnatural angle. The green glow of his blood was dimming. "Damn it," Evan whispered. "You're not going to last long out here." He grabbed the alien under the arms and heaved. Feeling the surprising weight of the armor, the alien groaned in pain, but made no move to fight. Rex trotted ahead, ears alert, glancing back to make sure Evan followed. They moved quickly through the forest, keeping low above them. The red scanning light swept past again, too close. Evan ducked behind a fallen tree. Heart pounding, the alien's breathing was ragged, each inhale a struggle. When the sky cleared for a moment, Evan pushed on, finally reaching the edge of the forest. The cabin's outline was a shadow against the dark hills. Inside, Evan laid the alien down on an old cot. Rex sat by the door, growling low as if guarding against whatever might come next. Evan looked at the wounded soldier, unsure what he had just brought into his home. Outside, in the distance, the hum of drones grew louder again. The night was far from over, And Evan knew this was only the beginning. Evan stood over the alien, breathing hard, the weight of what he'd just done pressing on him. The old cabin was quiet except for the faint ticking of the wall clock and the alien's uneven breathing. Outside, Rex paced near the door, tail twitching, head snapping toward every sound in the forest. The night had always felt safe out here, but now it carried danger in every shadow. Evan pulled the oil lamp closer and studied the alien more carefully. The armor was shattered in places, revealing dark skin with a faint silver sheen. Green blood oozed slowly from a deep cut along the alien's ribs. One leg looked broken, twisted at an unnatural angle. Evan reached out to check the wound, but stopped halfway. He was a human. This was an enemy. If anyone found out he had brought an enemy soldier into his home, he'd be arrested or worse. The war had made both sides unforgiving. He rubbed his temple, trying to think, why hadn't he just walked away? It would have been simple. Leave the alien to die. Let the forest take care of the problem. But Rex had barked. Wind looked at him with those stubborn eyes. The dog never acted like this with strangers. And something about the alien's eyes when they met his hadn't been filled with the usual hatred he'd seen in captured enemy soldiers. Evan fetched an old med kit from a metal box under the bed. It had been years since he'd used it. He had served as a combat medic once before leaving the military after too many friends didn't make it home. He cleaned the wound with sterilizing solution, ignoring the alien's weak groans. The green blood hissed faintly when it touched the cloth. Leaving a faint metallic smell in the air, he wrapped the ribs tightly, braced the leg as best as he could. Halfway through, the alien stirred, eyes fluttering open. For a moment, the gaze was sharp, wary, like a cornered animal. The alien's hand twitched toward his side award, where a weapon might have been, but his fingers closed on empty air. Evan kept his voice low, steady. You're safe. For now, the alien blinked slowly, as if processing the words. Then, in a voice broken and accented, he rasped something in his own language. Evan shook his head. I don't understand you. The alien closed his eyes again, exhaustion pulling him under. Evan sat back in the chair, staring at the floor. Safe for now, he'd said, but for how long? A faint rustling outside broke his thoughts. Rex let out a low growl and moved to the door, ears sharp. Evan picked up his old hunting rifle and approached the window slowly. Between the trees, faint beams of red light swept the forest floor. Enemy drones, closer than before, if they detected life signs here. They would send soldiers, human or alien, depending on who found him first. Neither would show mercy if they discovered the truth. A sharp knock rattled the door. Evan froze, rifle tight in his hands. The knock came again, followed by a voice. Evan? It's Corporal Jace. Evan's jaw clenched. Jace was a young patrol soldier from the human settlement, keen-eyed, curious, and annoyingly persistent. The last thing Evan needed was him poking around tonight. He cracked the door just enough to see the young man's face in the pale moonlight. Corporal, Evan greeted, forcing calm into his voice. Sorry to bother you. Sir, Jace said, shifting his rifle, there's been reports of an enemy survivor in the area, possibly wounded. We're checking every home. Evan kept his body blocking the door. Not here, just me and Rex. Jace's gaze flicked past him, toward the dim light inside. Mind if I take a quick look? Evan's heart thudded in his chest. Behind him, under the shadow of the cot, the alien lay still, but any movement could give him away. Not a good time, Evan said firmly. I've been busy. And you know Rex doesn't like visitors at night. As if on cue, Rex gave a low warning growl, teeth barely showing. Jace hesitated. Well? All right, but stay alert, sir. If you see anything at all, report it immediately. I will, Evan replied quickly when the young soldier left, disappearing into the forest with his flashlight beam dancing between the trees. Evan shut the door and locked it, He leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. That had been too close. He looked at the alien again, still unconscious. Still fragile between life and death. What was he doing? Why risk his life, his freedom? For an enemy? Evan didn't have an answer, but deep inside, a quiet voice told him he had already made his choice, and the night wasn't over yet. Outside, the sound of distant engines rumbled in the sky. More drones, maybe dropships. Evan checked the rifle, made sure the med kit was ready, and sat back down. The alien might not be able to speak his language, but his arrival had already spoken louder than words. Trouble was coming, and there was no going back. The night outside the cabin was no longer quiet. It had turned into a restless hum of machines and the distant thump of heavy engines. Every few minutes, a red beam of light swept over the treetops, searching for movement. Evan sat at the small, wooden table, staring at the alien lying on the cot. The bandages were already stained dark green, the rise and fall of his chest slow and uneven. Rex sat alert near the door, ears twitching at every distant sound. Evan had been in enough battles to know this wasn't just a search, was a full hunt. Someone high up wanted this alien found. Alive or dead, the only question was why. If this soldier was just another enemy grunt, they wouldn't be spending this many resources to track him. That thought made Evan's skin crawl. Who had he brought into his home? A sudden flash of light burst through the window. Evan froze, then realized it wasn't from the sky, it came from the alien's armor. A small, half-broken device on the chest plate was blinking. He stepped closer, inspecting it. It looked like some kind of distress beacon, but damaged. Great, Evan muttered. That'll lead them straight here. He pulled a knife from his belt and began prying it off. The alien stirred, eyes fluttering open, and his hand shot up to grip Evan's wrist. The strength was weak, but determined not. Break, the alien said in a low, accented voice. Important, Evan narrowed his eyes. Important for who? Your people. The same ones who've been bombing ours for years. The alien didn't answer, just closed his eyes again, as if the effort had drained him completely. Evan dropped the device onto the table. He didn't know why, but he didn't. Destroy it. Something about the alien's reaction made him hesitate. Instead, he wrapped it in a thick cloth and tucked it into a metal box. Far from the windows, hours passed. Outside, the forest felt alive with movement, drones hovering, boots crunching over leaves. Evan heard voices once, muffled but close, speaking in a mix of human standard and the alien language. That was the worst sign yet. Humans and aliens working together usually meant one thing. The hunted was dangerous to both sides. Rex's head snapped toward the window, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Evan moved quietly to the corner. Rifle ready, through the thin curtain, he saw shapes moving in the dark. Tall, armored, carrying rifles, 2 human soldiers and 1 alien tracker, their glowing eyes scanning the ground like predators. Evan's heartbeat quickened. If they came to the door, there'd be no way to hide the alien in time. The tracker bent low, touching the soil with clawed fingers. It hissed something in its own tongue, and one of the soldiers nodded. They were following a trail. Evan realized with a cold jolt they were heading straight toward the cabin inside. The alien on the cot stirred again, his breathing faster, his eyes opened. And for the first time, Evan saw something beyond pain in the emergency. He tried to sit up, but groaned and fell back. You? Hide, he said weakly. They kill. You too, Evan frowned. They're after you, not me. The alien shook his head faintly. Not just me. Rex whined, moving to the back door, his body tense. Evan understood immediately there was no time to argue. He pulled the blanket over the alien, then lifted him from the cot. The alien winced, but didn't resist. Evan's cabin had a hidden cellar beneath the kitchen, a leftover from the war days. He pushed the table aside, lifted the trapdoor, and lowered the alien inside. "Stay quiet," Evan whispered. No matter what happens, the alien's hand caught his wrist for a moment. "Thank you," he breathed, before sinking into the shadows. The knock came moments later, loud and sharp. "Open up. Search patrol." A human voice barked. Evan took a slow breath, then opened the door just enough to see the three figures. "Evening," he said, keeping his voice calm. "We're looking for a fugitive," one soldier said flatly. "He's dangerous, possibly armed. Seen in this sector. Have you noticed anything unusual tonight?" Evan shrugged. "Just the usual forest sounds." The alien tracker stepped forward, sniffing the air, its glowing eyes narrowing at Evan. It hissed something, and the soldier's grip tightened on his rifle. "We'll take a quick look inside," the soldier said. Evan blocked the doorway. "House is mine." "No warrant, no entry." The soldier's lips curled into a smirk. "Out here, warrants don't mean much," before they could push past. Rex lunged forward with a sudden snarl. Teeth bared, the tracker hissed and stepped back, its claws flexing. Evan raised his rifle slightly, not enough to aim, but enough to make a point. "You can search the forest all you want, but you're not stepping in here," he said firmly, after a tense moment. The soldiers backed away. "This isn't over," the human muttered before disappearing into the trees with the others. Evan shut the door and bolted it. His hands trembled not from fear, but from the knowledge that they'd be back, and next time they wouldn't knock. He lifted the trapdoor. The alien was still there, watching him silently from the shadows. Above them, the sound of distant engines grew louder. The hunt wasn't ending. It was only just beginning. The forest had gone quiet again, but Evan knew better than to trust it. Silence after a search meant one of two things: either they'd given up, or they were circling back for a slower, more careful sweep. He set the trapdoor back in place, but didn't move the table over it yet. Instead, he knelt and looked down into the dim cellar. The alien's eyes reflected the lantern light faintly, the green in them catching the shadows like liquid glass. "You need to explain," Evan said, voice low but sharp. "I'm risking my life here, and I don't even know who you are." The alien's breathing was steadier now, though he still winced when he shifted. "My name is Koro," he said slowly, each word careful, as if shaping them was painful. "I was a soldier, but no more." Evan frowned. "No more." "You're wearing the uniform," Koro glanced down at the cracked armor, his expression tightening. "Uniform is target," he said, "but not my choice to wear." He touched his side where the armor had been scorched and torn. "My people think I am traitor. Your people think I am enemy. Both want me dead." Evan leaned against the table, arms crossed. "Why? What did you do?" Koro hesitated, his gaze dropping to the dirt floor. "I saw truth," he said finally. "They say war is for honor, for land, for pride." His voice faltered. "But truth? War is for control, for power, for lies." He tapped his temple weakly. "I carry proof. Data, names, orders, everything. Both sides' leaders, working together. For profit of war." Evan's brows knit together. "That's impossible," he said automatically, though deep down, he knew it wasn't. Too many battles in his past had felt pointless to many operations where victory didn't change anything. If what Koro was saying was true, then neither side was innocent. Koro reached for the small metal box Evan had put the damaged beacon in. "That is transmitter," he said, "damaged, but still can send." "If fixed," Evan tensed. "Send to who?" "More of your people." Koro shook his head. "To everyone. All neutral worlds. Let them see truth. Let them stop war." Rex, lying beside the cellar opening, thumped his tail once, as if sensing the tension easing slightly. But Evan wasn't convinced. "You're asking me to believe you?" To believe an enemy soldier, he said. Koro looked at him steadily. You saved me. He replied simply, enemy. Would have left me to die, outside. A branch snapped, loud in the stillness. Evan's head shot toward the window movement in the trees. This time, it wasn't the same patrol from before. He caught glimpses of darker shapes, moving faster, quieter special forces. If the first team had been hunters, this one was the knife in the dark. He moved quickly. Pulling the alien out of the cellar, we have to go. Evan said. Koro grunted. In pain as Evan hauled him up. Where? There's an old smuggler's tunnel near the ridge, Evan replied. It connects to a dry creek bed. Get us past the searchlines before they could move. A knock rattled the door. Again, but softer this time, Evan. A voice called quietly. It was Corporal Jace again. Evan hesitated. Rex growled low. Sensing the difference in the tone, Jace's voice was urgent but not hostile. They're coming back. And they're not asking questions this time. He said, if you're hiding something, get rid of it, now. Evan cracked the door open. What do you mean, coming back? Jace's eyes flicked over Evan's shoulder into the cabin. But he didn't step inside. They've got orders to burn out every cabin in this sector if they don't find him. Jace whispered. Evan's gut twisted. Burn them out, no trial. No search, just destroy everything. When Evan didn't answer, Jace stepped closer. Lowering his voice further. I don't know what you've got going on, old man, but if you want to survive the night, you should leave. Now, he glanced once more at the dark interior, then walked away without waiting for a reply. Evan shut the door, locking it. Koro's eyes met his from across the room. You believe me now? The alien asked quietly. Evan didn't answer. But his silence was an answer in itself. He grabbed a pack, stuffed it with the med kit, the wrapped beacon, and a few supplies. You can walk, he asked. Koro nodded weakly. Rex was already at the door, tail stiff, ears forward, ready to guide them as Evan helped Koro to his feet. The alien spoke again. When we leave, they follow. Evan adjusted the rifle strap over his shoulder. Then we'll make sure they regret it. They slipped out the back into the cold night air. Above the treetops, distant red lights swept the forest again, searching. But now, Evan knew this wasn't just about saving a stranger. This was about the truth, and he wasn't going to let it die in the dark. The forest was a black maze under the moonlight. Evan moved fast, one arm gripping Koro's shoulder to keep him steady. The other hand holding his rifle. Rex trotted ahead, ears twitching, sometimes pausing to sniff the air before darting forward again. Every sound seemed sharper now, the crunch of leaves under their boots, the faint hum of drones overhead, the low whistle of wind through the trees. They had been walking for nearly half an hour when the glow of the settlement faded behind them. Up ahead, a narrow ridge rose like a jagged scar in the earth. Beyond it lay the dry creek bed Evan had mentioned. If they reached it, they could vanish into the tangle of old smuggler trails that twisted through the hills. But Koro was slowing, his breath ragged. Evan could feel the tremor in the alien's body with every step. We can stop for 2 minutes, Evan whispered, guiding him to sit on a moss-covered boulder. Koro's hands pressed to his side, where green blood still seeped faintly through the bandages. His gaze drifted toward the stars above, cold pinpricks of light in the vast night. This, not my world, Koro murmured, but I don't want it burned. Like mine. Evan leaned on his rifle, studying him. You said you had proof, he said. Proof that both sides are what? Using us. Koro's dark eyes met his. Yes. Leaders of your people and mine. Deal in shadow, trade in death. War is their business. He tapped the metal-wrapped beacon in Evan's pack. That can end it? Evan frowned. You really believe that one message can stop a war? Koro shook his head slowly. Not stop, but show truth. Give people reason to fight, for right? The choice pressed heavier on Evan now, if Koro was lying. Then sending the signal could expose human positions to the enemy, if he was telling the truth. Then hiding it would make Evan just another cog in the war machine, either way. Both sides would see him as a traitor. Rex gave a sudden low bark, his warning tone. Evan froze, listening. Through the trees came the faint crunch of multiple footsteps, steady and fast, not wandering patrols trackers on a direct line toward them. They didn't have minutes anymore. They had seconds. Move, Evan hissed, pulling Koro up again. They climbed the last stretch of the ridge, but halfway over. Koro stopped. No, he said, his voice stronger now despite the pain. Give me the beacon. Evan turned to him sharply. Now? Are you insane? Ah. We're being hunted. Koro shook his head. This high ground. Clear sky. Good. Signal. He reached for the pack. They close. We know have second chance. Evan's jaw tightened, his mind spinning. If he handed it over and the transmission betrayed human outposts, it would be his fault. If he didn't, everything Koro claimed to risk his life for would be lost. The shouts of soldiers echoed faintly below, the red glow of scanners flickering between the trees. Rex whined impatiently, pacing, glancing between the hunters and the path ahead. Evan's grip on the pack strap tightened, then loosened. He pulled out the cloth-wrapped beacon and shoved it into Koro's hands. You have 1 minute, he said. Koro gave a brief nod, his clawed fingers working quickly over the device. The damaged shell flickered to life, a faint blue light pulsing in rhythm. Evan kept watch, crouched at the ridge's edge, through the scope. He saw them 6 figures moving in formation, for human soldiers, 2 alien hunters, rifles ready. Scanning every shadow, they were less than 200 meters away. The beacon gave a soft chime. Signal. Sending. Koro breathed. In the distance, a drone veered toward their position, its red beam cutting across the ridge. They know, Evan muttered. The first shots came seconds later. Sizzling past the rocks, Evan fired back once, forcing them to take cover. Koro, we're out of time, he shouted. The alien's fingers danced over the controls one last time. Then he smashed the damaged antenna against the rock. The light inside went dark. Message? Sent, he said, forcing himself to his feet. Now? We run. They scrambled down the far side of the ridge, loose stones tumbling under their boots. Blaster fire lit the night behind them. Rex darted ahead, leading them into the narrow creek bed where shadows swallowed them whole. The sound of pursuit grew louder, voices barking orders in 2 languages, but the turns in the creek gave them cover. And within minutes, the glow of scanners faded behind them. Finally, Evan slowed. Leaning against the creek wall, Koro collapsed beside him, clutching his side. You realize, Evan said between breaths, we just painted targets on both our backs. Koro gave a faint, pained smile. Yes, but now. Galaxy knows, above the sky was still and cold, but somewhere far away. A message was racing through the void, a truth neither side could hide forever, and Evan knew. From this moment on, there was no going back. Asterisk, the dry creek bed twisted. Like a snake through the hills, Evan and Koro moved fast, but every step sent pain through the alien's injured leg. Rex stayed ahead, darting left and right to scout the path, sometimes pausing to sniff the wind before pressing forward again, above them. The moonlight flickered between branches, giving just enough light to see, but not enough to feel safe. Evan's ears were tuned to every sound, the crunch of his own boots on gravel, the faint scrape of Koro's armor, the heavy thump of distant boots in pursuit. The enemy hadn't given up. In fact, they were closing in. The soft hum of drones grew louder, their search beams slicing through the forest canopy. Somewhere behind, an alien tracker let out a sharp, high-pitched call, answered by a deep human voice barking coordinates. "We can't outrun them forever." Evan muttered under his breath. Koro's breathing was labored, but his voice was steady. "Not outrun," he said. Outsmart, Evan glanced back at him. "You've got a plan." Koro's eyes flicked toward a split in the creek bed ahead. "Yes, but dangerous." They reached the 4-kilometer path sloped gently downward, wide and open. The other climbed sharply into the rocks, narrow and jagged. Rex hesitated. Glancing between the two routes, tail flicking, Koro pointed to the steep path. "That way. High ground." Surprise. Evan understood high ground meant they could set an ambush, but it also meant being trapped if things went wrong. Behind them, voices grew louder. No time to argue. Evan nodded. And they climbed the rough slope, hands gripping cold stone for balance. Rex bounded ahead easily, vanishing into the dark above when they reached the top. They found themselves on a ledge overlooking the lower creek bed. From here, they could see movement below, shadows slipping through the moonlight. The hunters were spread out, scanning every corner, methodical and confident. Koro sank down behind a boulder, pulling a small metal shard from his belt, part of his damaged armor. He pressed a button on it, and it began to emit a faint, rhythmic pulse. "What's that?" Evan whispered, "Heat lure." Koro replied, "They follow." Wrong path. He tossed the device into the open creek bed below. The nearest hunter stopped, scanned it, then signaled to the others. The group shifted direction, following the false signal. Evan exhaled slowly. "All right, that bought us time." But before relief could settle in, the whine of another drone cut through the air, this one directly above their ledge. Its red beams swept down, catching the glint of Koro's armor for a split second. A sharp alarm blared from the machine. "They know." Evan barked, grabbing Koro's arm. Blaster fire tore into the rocks around them, sending shards of stone flying. Rex barked furiously, darting between Evan and Koro, his teeth bared at the machine overhead. Evan fired 2 quick shots with his rifle, the first missing, the second punching through the drone's casing. It spun wildly, sparks flying, before crashing into the creek bed below. But the damage was done. The hunters now had their exact location. Koro stumbled as they ran, but Evan kept him moving. They pushed deeper into the rocky ridge until they reached a narrow tunnel hidden behind a curtain of vines. It was barely wide enough for one person at a time. "This lead." "Out," Koro said, but fast. The sound of pursuit was now a storm behind them, boots pounding, voices shouting, weapons charging. Evan shoved Koro ahead. "Go." Rex with him. The tunnel twisted sharply before opening into a wider cavern. The air here was colder, the ground uneven and damp. In the center of the cavern stood a massive, rusted structure, an old mining drill, long abandoned. Beside it, a narrow vent shaft rose toward the surface, faint moonlight trickling through. "The opening? This it?" Evan asked. Koro nodded. "Yes." "But climb." Evan glanced at the shaft. It was vertical, jagged, and nearly 10 meters high. The sound of hunters entering the tunnel behind them echoed through the stone. "They'll be here in less than a minute," Evan said. Koro's eyes narrowed. "You first." "Pull me after." Evan slung his rifle across his back and began climbing, hands finding purchase on the rough edges of stone. Rex scrambled up beside him with ease. Halfway up, Evan looked down. Koro was making slow progress, his injured leg slowing him. The first hunter burst into the cavern below, weapon raised. "Koro, jump!" Evan shouted. The alien looked up at him, then let go of the wall, grabbing onto a dangling chain from the mining drill. He swung it toward the shaft, catching hold of a protruding rock near Evan. Blaster fire lit up the cavern as Evan pulled Koro up the last few meters. They tumbled onto the forest floor above. Breathing hard, Rex circled them once, tail wagging anxiously. Evan got to his feet, scanning the tree line. They had escaped the cavern, but the chase wasn't over. In the distance, the glow of enemy searchlights cut through the trees. Sweeping toward them again, Koro gripped Evan's arm, his voice low and certain. Next, they send everyone. Evan tightened his grip on the rifle. Then we make sure we're ready, he said, because now. It wasn't just survival. It was the final stretch before the fight that would decide if Koro's truth lived or died. The forest ahead was a dark wall, the kind that swallowed sound and light. Evan and Koro pushed into it, their breaths sharp in the cold air. Rex kept close, his paws silent on the damp earth, nose twitching for any hint of danger behind them. The night burned red searchlights and weapons fire lighting the ridge they had just escaped. The hunters were coming, and this time, Evan could tell from the noise. It wasn't just one squad. It was everyone. They moved until the trees thinned and the ground dropped away into a wide, grassy hollow. In the center stood a half-collapsed Cum's tower from the old war, its steel bones jutting into the sky. Evan stopped, his eyes scanning the structure. "This is it," he said. Koro glanced at him. "This? Old tech." Evan nodded. "Old, but functional enough. If we're going to make sure your message doesn't vanish into the void, we'll have to boost it here." Koro limped toward the base of the tower, his hands already working to open a rusted panel. Sparks danced as he connected his damaged beacon to the tower's core. "This will repeat signal to every relay in range," he said. "Once started, cannot be stopped." Evan tightened his grip on his rifle. "Then we buy it the time it needs." The sound of engines grew louder, dropships cutting through the treetops. Evan could see their dark shapes passing over the moon. Rex growled, tail low, ears pinned back. The first squad emerged from the trees opposite the ridge. Always. Weapons raised. They didn't waste time talking. Blaster fire cut through the air, searing the grass at Evan's feet. Evan dove behind a fallen log, firing back. One of the alien hunters went down in a flash of green blood. Koro stayed crouched at the tower, his fingers moving faster over the beacon's interface. 40 seconds. He called out, his voice tight. Evan gritted his teeth. 40 seconds in a fight felt like a lifetime. Another squad broke through from the left. Forcing Evan to shift position, Rex darted in and out of the grass, barking to draw their aim. Then, slipping away before they could hit him, a bullet tore into the log beside Evan's head. Splintering wood, he fired back, catching a human soldier in the shoulder, sending him sprawling. The hum of the tower changed pitch, a deep resonance echoing. Through the hollow, Koro shouted, "Signal at 70%. Evan risked a glance. 3 alien hunters were closing in on Koro, using the tower's support beams as cover. He sprinted from his position, slamming into the first one and knocking its weapon away. The second swung its rifle toward him, but Rex launched himself at its arm, teeth sinking deep. Koro didn't even look up. His focus was locked on the beacon. The hum grew louder, the light on the device pulsing faster. More fire rained down from the ridge. Evan knew they were trying to destroy the tower before the signal completed. He dropped to one knee, lining up a shot on a soldier with a rocket launcher. The man fell before he could fire, but another took his place almost instantly. 20 seconds. Koro called. A blaster bolt struck Koro's side, and he staggered, gripping the beam for support. Evan's chest went cold. Koro didn't. Stop blood dripping from his wound. He pushed the final sequence. Keep them away, he gasped. Evan moved in front of him, rifle blazing. The grass around them smoked from the heat of the fight, the smell of ozone thick in the air. The dropships were almost overhead now, their floodlights sweeping the hollow. Evan knew that even if the signal went out, they wouldn't leave here alive. But that was fine, because dying was worth it if the truth lived 10 seconds. Koro's voice broke with a strain. Evan reloaded with shaking hands. Taking down another attacker, the hum of the tower reached a sharp electric peak, like the air before a storm. Rex stood by Koro's side now, teeth bared at anyone who dared step close. Then, with a sudden surge, the tower's old antennas flared to life. A beam of blue light shot skyward, piercing the clouds. Koro slumped against the metal frame, breathing hard. "It is done," he whispered. "Truth is free." The hunters hesitated now. Their weapons still raised, but their movements slower, almost uncertain. In the distance, the dropships stopped advancing. Hovering in place, Evan could hear the faint crackle of Kum's chatter urgent. Confused, whatever Koro had sent was already changing the battlefield. One of the alien hunters lowered his rifle, staring at Koro. Then, without a word, he turned and melted back into the forest. Others began to retreat as well, within minutes. The hollow was silent again, except for the soft hum of the tower winding down. Evan dropped to a knee beside Koro. "You're bleeding bad," he said, pulling at the bandages. Koro managed a faint smile. "Not as bad as before." But tired, Rex nosed Koro's hand gently, tail wagging once. They stayed there until the first rays of dawn touched the hollow. The war wasn't over, but something had shifted, somewhere out there. People, human and alien, were hearing the truth for the first time. And that meant hope. Evan stood, offering his hand to Koro. "Come on," he said. "If we survived this, we can survive anything." Koro took it, pulling himself to his feet. Together, with Rex trotting between them, they walked out of the hollow toward whatever came next, because after everything, one thing was certain: they had just changed the galaxy forever.